Happy Tuesday!
My name is Alan.
My name's Nick.
Welcome
Into the dungeon. An empty feeling grips the brothers' stomach as they stare upon the altar and inner sanctum of the subterranean temple. Landar and Torin's Kai senses burn as if every nerve in their body is screaming a warning to flee from this evil chamber. Huge braziers of molten metal encircle a black altar upon which lies fair Madelon, the daughter of Baron Vanneland. She seems to be entranced. Her breathing is slow and shallow. Beyond the altar lie two massive doors, a gigantic skull engraved upon their black stone surface. Out of the brothers' view, another door opens, and a procession of red-cloaked priests enter the temple. Their heads are covered, and they carry strange amulets of black stone. They file past the altar, depositing the amulets in a circle around the young girl's body, and then file out again in total silence. Then, the brothers hear the sound of a distant drumbeat. It grows louder and nearer. The measured steps of steel-shod boots resound in its wake. Baraka is approaching.
Ooh. We need to turn to section 215. Baraka carries the stench of death and decay about him. He strides into the temple, his boots of Gurga's hide covering both legs and feet, and slams shut the huge stone door with frightening ease. He stands in silence before pushing open the huge black doors engraved with the menacing skulls. Suddenly, a gale-force wind sweeps through the temple, and the brothers' ears are filled by a terrible scream. Beyond the open doors, a pier of stone juts into the abyss of Maakengorge. The brothers are staring into the chasm of doom. Baraka turns away from the wind-swept pier and walks slowly towards the altar. From a hidden scabbard, he removes a twisted black dagger and holds its stiletto blade to the light. An evil blue flame runs up and down the black steel spike, flickering in the ice-cold winds of Maakengorge. The sacrifice is about to begin. So we are given two options here. If we wish to draw our weapons and attack Baraka, we turn to 296. And if we wish to distract his attention from the altar without attacking him, we turn to 119.
I can imagine what Torin wants to do, but I want to emphasize it doesn't say surprise attack here. So Lando is apprehensive as he usually is. He wants to try to distract him in the hope that the next section will say that we can launch a surprise attack.
Yeah, I think Torin would normally want to attack, but I don't know, heading first into a fight like this might be suicidal. Let's try and distract him.
So we're turning to section 119. Hold your blade, Baraka! Her life is not yours for the taking!
Landar's words ring out above the howling wind. The renegade noble turns to face the brothers, his laugh as piercing as Landar's command. Baraka advances towards the brothers, the flame-licked dagger held high in his mailed fist. The Kai Lords draw their weapons and enter the temple. So we are given two options again. If we wish to enter into combat with this warrior lord, we turn to 296. And if we wish to try free Madelon, we turn to 73. So, if we can free Madelon and get the heck out of here, I mean, that would be ideal.
Torin, free Madelon! Landar stands at the foot of the altar, blade ready as he tries to create a distraction, whilst, hopefully, Torin can free Madelon.
Leave me to it, Landar! I'll get her freed in no time! So we turn to section 73.
Landar circles the altar, keeping just out of reach of Baraka's blue flame dagger. Baraka unsheathes a scimitar with his free hand, cutting the air above Landar's head with its mirror-like steel, but drawing no blood. We've only got one option here, because the other one states if we possess a flask of holy water, which we do not. So we need to turn to section 325.
The brothers are now in combat with Baraka, renegade noble of Vasagonia. They cannot evade the combat and must fight to the death. He is a formidable warrior who possesses great strength of will. and he is immune to Mind Blast. Damn. So I've got a -2 there.
Yeah, and he's quite powerful. He's got a combat skill of 25, and he's got an endurance of 58, which has already been doubled. He's going to log that on our action shots. So Torin has a combat ratio of -6, and Landar a combat ratio of -3.
Not looking good, Landar. Not looking good at all.
Nope. But here we are, and the fight must commence.
I'd say I was trying to free the maiden, Maledon or whatever she's called. So I was occupied with that. I'd say Landar has the first attack here.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Here we go. Oh, starting strong with a 9. Landar, having narrowly dodged that scimitar, manages to duck and weave, slashing with his Summersword in exchange, and catching the warrior lord across his chest, dealing 9 points of endurance damage. I managed to escape unscathed. It's over to Torin.
Torin, noticing that Landar has begun combat, quickly turns around, ignoring the maiden for now, and draws his scimitar. Ooh! Big old goosey egg.
Goosey Lucy.
So that's a 10. As Torin sees Landar slash at the enemy, and the enemy take a step back, he lunges forward, using this window of opportunity to catch him by surprise, and plunges the scimitar into Baraka's thigh. Torin deals 9 endurance points of damage and takes none in return.
Baraka's now down to 40 endurance points. Landar's growing in confidence, having seen 2 big attacks from himself and his brother. He's raising the Summersword above his head, and he's going to try and hack at Baraka.
Ooh, not good.
Not good at all.
That's a 3.
Baraka manages to sidestep, only being nicked by the Summersword on his shoulder, as he then slashes with his scimitar across Landar's chest. Landar takes 5 endurance points of damage, and Baraka takes 3.
Torin looks on helplessly as Landar takes a large hit. He recomposes himself though, focusing on an opening, and again lunges forward, this time aiming for the torso of this warrior, Baraka. Ooh, that's a 9.
Yes.
It's a 9, which means Torin indeed finds the flesh of Baraka opening a large wound in his midriff. I've dealt 8 points of damage, and as soon as I do, I jump back, evading a wild swipe from Baraka's weapon. Baraka's down to 29 endurance points. We're slowly getting there.
Landar, momentarily stunned from that big hit, regains his composure, sees Torin land another massive strike, and seeing that wound gushing blood now, takes aim for the same area as he tries to plunge the Summersword deep into Baraka's midriff.
Ooh, beautiful. That's an 8.
Yeah, not bad at all. Landar manages to make good contact as the Summersword finds its mark, dealing Baraka with 8 points of damage, who reacts with a fist holding the dagger as he manages to strike Landar across the face with a punch of his mailed fist for 1 point of endurance.
As soon as Torin steps back, again he's on the front foot, leaping forwards, scimitar above his head. Oof, that's a 9. Torin, with the full weight behind his scimitar, comes crashing down above Baraka's head, slicing part of his skull open. Scimitar briefly lodges into his skull. Torin wrestles with his weapon until he finally can pull it out as Baraka starts gushing from his head. He dealt 8 points of damage here, and again Torin was able to nimbly move back before Baraka could strike him, and he took 0 endurance points of damage.
Baraka's now down to 13. Landar, seeing that Baraka's now faltering, pulls back the Summersword, and this time he's aiming for the knees. He's going to try and get the brother's foe down on the ground and hopefully prone.
He stands no chance. He's got an 8 now.
The Summersword does catch him on the knee, but instead of lying prone, he collapses on one knee, but with his dagger manages to get a glancing nick on Landar's thigh for 1 point of damage in exchange for 8 that the Summersword has inflicted on him. Baraka's down to his last 5 hit points. Landar is down to 28.
Oh, I don't think I did it. That's a 3 on the roll here, which means that Torin, seeing Baraka now kneeling and vulnerable, walks up to him and kicks him in the face. As Baraka is lifted by the force, Torin, with a flick of his wrist, tries to slice his throat open. But with all his bravado and showmanship, he doesn't notice that Baraka has raised his dagger just in time to deflect Torin's attack, and then with a scimitar, arcs widely and slashes at Torin, which falls back. Torin takes 5 endurance points of damage, and only deals 2 as a kick in the face leaves Baraka reeling. Baraka is now down to 3, panting, exhausted, and almost at death's door.
Torin's at a respectable 21 out of 26. That's the first time he's been hit. Seeing Torin slashed across his chest with that scimitar, and sensing the mortal danger that faces them, despite Baraka looking like he's on his last legs, Landar bursts into a rage and starts pummeling his face time and time again, before pulling his head up by the nape of his neck, putting the Summersford under his throat, and slicing it cleanly as the blood gushes all over the floor. As Baraka dies, the wind suddenly rises in pitch and intensity, filling the temple with a mournful cry of despair. The brothers, Torin and Landar, the Kai Lords, feel the chill, malevolent spirit of Dark Lord Vashna engulfing them in an icy embrace. But the brothers sense that he is powerless to harm them. The sacrifice has been foiled, and he is doomed to lament for a victory that might have been. Lying on the black temple floor is the dagger of Vashna. As Landar picks it up, he hands it over to Torin. The evil blue flame flickers and dies, and as long as the brothers possess this evil blade, Dark Lord Vashna and his legion of dead warriors will remain imprisoned in the chasm of doom.
Torin goes back to free fair Madeline from the altar and carry her through the corridors of the temple that lead up to the surface. As the brothers emerge into the moonlight ruins, an astounding sights greet their eyes. Baraka's warriors are running from the ghost city in all directions, closely pursued by an army of cavalrymen. The light of the full moon and the guttering torches that these horsemen carry illuminates the sun crest that bedecks their tunics. Word must have reached Homeguard, for they are the Summerlending army, led by King Ulnar himself. The Kai Lord's countrymen praise their courage and daring, their strident cheers drowning the cry of Maakengorge. For once again, the brothers have proved themselves true heroes of Sommerland. As the LoneWolves deliver Madeline into the waiting arms of her father, his overwhelming joy fills the brothers with a sense of great achievement. They are indeed worthy of the title Kai Lords. They have succeeded in their perilous quest, but the epic saga of the LoneWolves, last of the Kai Lords, is far from complete. A new and deadly challenge awaits them in Book 5 of the LoneWolf series entitled Shadow on the Sand. Ooh. And that's where we're gonna leave it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Usually I say here as much as we have, but the reality is that this episode has finished on a bittersweet note. There was a very lengthy VAR review and deliberation, and this, the options that were given to us and the path that we took initially didn't make sense. We cut it from the episode so that it would, it wouldn't ruin the immersion of the story and the gameplay. But there is a special outtake, which for those of you who perhaps haven't listened on beyond the outro music in the past, we usually have a selection of bloopers and outtakes. Usually they're mistakes that we do, or little songs that we sing, or shenanigans that we get up to in our discussions, which usually don't make the full episode. But in this particular episode, there is an entire fight which was outtaken, cut. I wish we could erase it from history, but I think it's only fair to our listeners that you hear the choice that we initially made, the scenario that the book presented us, which I feel very strongly about, and the result that ended up in. So we're going to discuss it here a little bit now, and we need to go back to that scene where we were presented with the option of either drawing our weapons and launching an attack on Baraka, which, although it did not specify was a surprise attack, thematically, we were hidden. It would have made sense that it would have been a surprise attack of some kind.
It was implied in the text,
Yeah.
If you wish to draw your weapon and attack Baraka, we would have turned to 296. And that's what we originally chose. We deliberated for a while where We said that Torin would indeed want to attack. Landar was also feeling more emboldened and wanted to attack. And we discussed that the other option, the one we ended up choosing in this episode that you just heard, which was to distract his attention, didn't make much sense, as we would announce ourselves and allow him to attack us first.
Yeah, that's why the other one seemed to be implying it would be a surprise attack.
Exactly. And it does say, I mean, to be fair, it does say attack Baraka. It never said anything other than attack, specifically attack Baraka. That's what we chose to do. We chose to attack Baraka.
Yeah, and part of the logic, as you'll hear in that fight, was that, there was this, I think it was called a pier.
Yeah.
Which led to the Chasm of Doom, and we sort of thought, well, we'd be fighting on that pier. Maybe we get to push him, or, maybe the fight's easier because of the limited space. There was reasons for it.
Yeah, we also mentioned that if we announce ourselves and he's about to conjure this great dead army.
Yeah, and all he has to do is kill this
maiden. If we just say, hey, we are here, he would just go, oh yeah? Fuck you. Now we have an army. So, how would that help anything?
Yeah, or he could shout out to all those priests that walked in as well.
Also, and have them attack us. So, we really thought that was the best course of action, and it made most sense. And with that logic that we've presented here, to excuse ourselves, I think it does. So,
and that's only the beginning of the problems.
Yeah. So we then turn to 296, right?
Yeah.
And this is what we are presented with.
Yeah, and this is where I have a big issue, because it says, if you possess the Summersford, we would have turned to section 122. If we did not possess the special item, we would have turned to section 274.
So here we are thinking,
we've got the Summersford, so there must be...
We took the right choice.
Yeah, 100%. So we turn to 122. We will come back now to the other option, because that's part of the issue as well. So we turn to 122, and instead of rushing to attack him, it just says that, in this case, Landar would have raised his golden sword, and these horrible, terrible images of death and horror fill his mind. Baraka sees the brothers falter. He would have struck a cruel blow, and we would have lost a point of endurance. Which, fine, fair enough. Up to that point, I can accept it. The surprise attack didn't work or whatever.
Fine, but it's kind of leading you into taking a wrong decision, which is part of the reason, I don't know. It said attack. Why have you raised suddenly? Why have you raised your sword, and what are you doing? Jump in and attack, And that's what I think. The text is implying one thing, and then when you turn the page, it's something completely different.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with an attack.
And that's happened before, and I could have understood and accepted that. Would have been annoyed, but not as seriously pissed and salty as I got. This is where the issues really begin, because it says here that we're being attacked by a very powerful Mind Blast. So, up to there, fair enough. This guy's got Mind Blast. And it says here that unless we possess the Kai discipline of Mind Shield, our combat skill is reduced by 4. So there's a really important thing here, which is, those of you who have been listening to this book in particular from the book where we got the Summersford, you'll have known that the sword blocks all magic against the wielder of the sword, and this directly led and directly influenced our decision at the beginning of this book when Torin had to pick his Kai discipline. He was going to pick Mind Shield because that made more sense to him, to help us in battles, and because he already had Mind Blast, so it would make sense you'd have Mind Blast and Mind Shield. But we decided, no, we don't need Mind Shield because the Summersford, already established in lore and in the book, and
it cancels out the magic. Yeah,
it cancels it out. So
why would I choose to speak with the animals, the animal kinship, when I could instead have chosen the Mind Shield, right? To help us in battle. I wouldn't have, unless we knew that the Summersford would not do absolutely anything when it mattered, which is what happened. I mean, it didn't protect us here from the Mind Shield at all. But I'd like to double down on this. It's basically changing the whole mechanic of the sword for no apparent reason. The sword does what it does. Why doesn't it do it here? That makes absolutely no sense. And for me, that's one of the biggest sticking points. How is that even explained? I don't get it.
It isn't explained. And, that's the issues just get worse here, because we're talking that he's got Mind Blast. And, we discussed about perhaps this was Joe Dever's way of balancing the fights, because if we jump back to the previous option, and if we didn't have the Summersford, we were presented with two further options. One would have been if we had a flask of holy water, which we'll get to later. Well, let's carry on with the arc related to the sword. Okay, so we don't have the holy water. We now fight Baraka. He's not surprised, and he doesn't inflict a point of damage, which he did in the fight. You can hear that at the end, the very last outtake. Al and I were discussing this might just be a way of, making the fight harder to balance the encounter itself, and that's why, poor choice of narrative perhaps, because it doesn't make thematic or mechanical sense, and that's why it's harder. But, and this is the important thing, Mind Blast adds to your combat skill. Here he doesn't have Mind Blast, he's immune to our Mind Blast, so that's fine. But now all of a sudden this powerful warrior doesn't have Mind Blast. So from a narrative point of view, your big bad is the big bad, he is what he is, he's got whatever powers. Now here suddenly he doesn't have it. When we were debating, Al sort of mentioned, and jump in if I'm recalling this incorrectly, but that perhaps he used Mind Blast because he was angry or surprised that we had tried to attack him, and that's why he did it. But then surely what should have happened is his combat skill should have gone up, not ours come down. So the net result would have been the same, but I could have accepted that. So if his Mind Blast would have been, because it was more powerful, as it says, his Mind Blast is a +4, then his combat skill in the fight that we lost should have been 29. Would have been the same result, but that I could have accepted.
As Nick was saying, I understand that this is a choose your own adventure, and I understand that there have to be good choices, bad choices, and tougher choices, and worse outcomes, and all that kind of stuff, right? I also understand that if you go through one of the choices, you don't necessarily look at the others, so you wouldn't know what the others have. But surely the author of the book wants you to play all of his books going forward. So if you get to a point where you die, I'm sure he wants you to try again, not just give up on the book, right?
Yeah, even if it's create another character, you'd get to this point and you'd pick a different option.
Yeah, so eventually you're gonna know. And it has to add up. It has to make sense that if this guy uses Mind Blast, he's going to use Mind Blast everywhere. Every fight he's going to use Mind Blast. If you want to make the encounter harder, if you want to balance encounter, because suddenly you have a +8 Summersford, and it seems like you're overpowered, which you should be, because remember the Summersford pretty much decimated a whole kind of
whole
army.
Siege, yeah.
Yeah, it was an incredible kind of nuke that it did. So, I mean, you have the Summersford. You're not just going to brandish it and show it to the guy so he can attack you first. You're going to go all out and attack him. But fine, let's move away from that for a second. So fine, you want to balance it so that it's a bit harder because you now have the Summersford. But maybe the guy has 2 weapons and suddenly his combat skill increases. Or maybe he calls one of his allies.
And actually, sorry, before you move on to the allies, we actually discussed that in the rant, which may or may not make the cut. And then when we played the path which actually made the episode, he did have 2 weapons, but yet his combat skill didn't increase. So, I mean, there was ways to do it if he wanted to balance it, which is what I think you're getting on.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense how he's balanced it, and it feels cheap, right? Like you've been tricked into a situation and just been put up against all the odds for no apparent reason, just because you had the Summersford. And with no real narrative sense. Again, if the guy has Mind Blast, he will have Mind Blast. If he's about to die, he would use it, right? So it makes no sense in that regard.
Yeah, we even discussed that we could have understood it if the other path had said for the first couple of rounds he doesn't use Mind Blast, but then after 3 rounds or 4 or 5 rounds or whatever, the combat skill now changes because he starts using the Mind Blast. I mean, it still doesn't negate the fact that they completely nerfed the Summersford, changed the mechanics. Now it's not blocking this magic at all, even though the description says it blocks all magic. Not all magic up to a certain level, not low levels of magic, not weak magic, blocks all magic. So
the thing is, were we supposed to just negate the Mind Blast because we had the Summersford? Surely would have said it, right? It's not like it does this, yeah. But we've just come...
In other fights it said
and we've just come from a section that gave us the option to choose, do you have the Summersford? Yes. Now do all of this. So it knows that we have the Summersford. Why it would have instead said, this guy is a mighty warrior, he has Mind Blast and all these things, but remember, you have the Summersford, you negate its magical effect or whatever. So, in essence, as we stepped into that battle, and again, as a reminder, if you want to hear that battle, you can do so at the very, very end of this episode. Wait for the beep, and after that, you'll get the full fight. In essence, we came into this fight. I had -4, and then the -2 because I couldn't use my mind blast either, so I was punished to -6.
Yeah, which ended up being a total of -10.
-10 on the chart. It was practically impossible. Now, full disclaimer, I did roll pretty damn poorly, and you'll see if you listen to it, you'll hear it, you'll see what happened.
Yeah, but even with those stats, because you were at -10, I think I was at -7. The max damage I could do rolling with a 10 was 8. And I think the max damage you could do was a 7 with 0. The fight was impossible.
Yeah, you do that 20 times and you probably die 19. It wasn't going to end well. We decided to do it this way, to do the whole fight again and choose the other path, record it, so that we gave fluency to the podcast. It didn't make sense to have 2 fights almost similar to each other, one after the other. We discussed for a moment to just end it there, but we thought it would cheapen the whole thing, because at least let's reach book 5 and finish the whole series, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't just about reaching book 5, because we discussed that if we had died in this second fight fairly, it would have been over. The big concern I had, because Al was more inclined to ending it outright, the big concern I had was that we would have ended the episode, we would have had this mega rant, and trust me, the rant was significantly wilder than what you're hearing now. It would have seemed like we were just rage quitting, or at least that was my concern. It would appear like, oh, this is bullshit, we're not playing anymore, sort of thing, rather than...
Yeah, that's fair. I for one, I felt that the end of that fight was quite epic myself, and I was happy with how the story of Landar and Torin ended. Obviously, I wasn't happy because
I know what you mean.
They died, but it was a cool ending.
And I would have accepted it.
Yeah,
I would have accepted it.
It felt cheap to do it again, to fight the same guy again, this time with less stats, because that's the way they decided to have the story. And it just felt a bit cheap. But as a podcast, perhaps if I had been playing privately, I would have said, look, forget it. And then maybe come back to it in a few months' time with a fresh mind or whatever, and then do the other books. But yeah, we want to finish the whole series, and I think that's important to do. And then we can have a whole episode saying what we think about the book, review it a bit, like we did with the other season of The Dragon of Icespire Peak. If you haven't heard it, go back and listen to it.
And just to clarify, when we're saying play the whole series, we mean the Kai series, which is the 5 books.
Yeah, the first 5.
I started off really enjoying this system. I think the ideas are really good. I'm not going to go too much into it because that will be in the reflection episode, but I certainly don't want to play beyond the Kai series.
Let's play 5 and let's see how we feel after that.
It's going to take a lot to convince me otherwise.
Let's see. And then we can make the review and discuss what we felt was good, its strengths, its weaknesses, and all that.
But yeah, why not get involved on our Discord server? Let us know what you thought, if you've listened to the other fights. Let us know if you feel that it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. I mean, I still... It's going to take some convincing from you guys to tell me it made sense that the Summersford was completely nerfed from a mechanical point of view. So yeah, we'll be back next week. But if you can't wait a whole week, you know what to do by now. Visit www.i2td.com. Follow the links there to our social media pages. Join our Discord server. Pop by and say hello. And whilst you're there, why not visit our Buy Me a Coffee page, where in exchange for a one-off donation you can purchase a potion, which in this game we're using as rerolls. And it's a fun way that we came up with just to interact with you guys and share the experience with you. You can be a part of the stories we tell and shape the adventures we play by giving us that facility.
If you can't or wish not to donate, do not worry, you can still help us out by sharing our stuff with all your friends and family, joining us on our social media. Also, maybe leave a review and a rating on one of your podcast players of choice. Anything you choose to do will help us tremendously, and we are very grateful for it.
This brings us on now to the end of the episode club.
The last one standing.
We give you a password. It proves to us that you have the highest endurance points and you've made it all the way to this point of the episode. And you use it in a comment. We laugh at it. We go, or whatever reactions we have. We read them all. We love them. Make sure you put your entry in the channel entitled The Last One Standing on our Discord server in order to be eligible.
That's right. And do you have a password for us this week?
I sure do.
Let us know.
Salty.
Salty, like the mines of Moria.
Are the mines of Moria salt?
I don't know. But salty like our tears.
And the sweat pouring profusely from us.
Yeah. And make sure you stick to the very, very, very end to get that little bonus fight that we had where we completely got slaughtered.
Yeah.
By Baraka. Anyway, thank you very much. Remember the password, Salty. Thank you for hanging on to the very last minute and tuning in. We love you for it. And don't forget that we will see you next time as we delve
into the dungeon. Landar's usually the more apprehensive one, but he's starting to draw his sword from its scabbard. He's thinking if we can rush down and maybe push him off that, what was it called? A
chasm.
Into the chasm of doom?
Into the chasm of doom. I doubt it's going to be that easy, but yes, I don't think grabbing his attention would do us any good. What are we going to say? Hello? And he's going to say, oh, hi, welcome to Maakengorge.
Throw a little stone or something, and then he's going to know something's up. He's going to call in all those priests.
Yeah, exactly. What's the point of getting his attention when we could swiftly attack him and catch him by surprise, hopefully?
I agree.
Ultimately, if we get his attention, there's going to be a fight.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to avoid the fight. And it's likelier that if we surprise attack him, at least, maybe we don't push him off the pier, but maybe it's like a pirate fight on the plank, and we've got the upper hand.
And he's about to, I suppose, slash at this poor maiden, because he took out the dagger, right?
Yeah, so there's not much time to lose here.
Exactly, so we're going to say, hey! And he's going to turn around and he's going to go, yeah, fuck you, and kill the girl anyway, so yeah, I think we got to attack. Torin also has drawn his scimitar.
Landar looks at Torin, gives him a knowing nod. The count of 3, Torin. 1, 2, 3. We're turning to section 296.
Ooh! Hey!
Here we go.
Here we go. Just 2 options, straight up options. No texts, nothing. If you possess the Summon's Word, turn to 1 to 2. If you do not possess this special item, turn to 274. Landar, indeed, as you all know, possesses the Summon's Word, so we turn to 1 to 2.
As Landar raises his golden sword, the howling wind seems to rise in pitch and intensity. It claws at his mind, filling his head with terrible images of death and horror. Baraka sees Landar falter and strikes a cruel blow that opens a wound in his cheek. Landar loses 1 endurance point, but the sudden pain reawakens him to the presence of his enemy, and the combat begins. Baraka has a combat skill of 25 and an endurance of 58. That's been doubled already from 29.
We are being attacked by a very powerful mind blast. Unless we possess the Kai discipline of Mind Shield, which I believe we don't, our combat skill is reduced by 4 for the duration of this combat. However, Baraka himself is a warrior who possesses formidable strength of will, and he is immune to Mind Blast. So, if we win the combat, we need to turn to 350. Let's see how we do. Oof. Big oof here. We've calculated the combat ratios, and it's not looking pretty.
No, at all. It's a -7 for Landar and a -10 for Torin.
This could be an instant kill for us. I think at these levels of minuses, if I roll really low, it could potentially be an insta kill.
Yeah, if we roll 1s, we're dead.
Oof.
Well, Torin will be dead. Landar can just about escape an insta kill. Anyway, here we go. My voice is noticeably less enthusiastic.
We don't fancy our chances here, but let's hope for the best.
Oh wait, I need to take 1 endurance point off as well.
Yeah. So Landar is starting with 34 out of 35 endurance points, and Torin a very paltry 26 out of 26.
Yeah, you could be done in a couple of hits.
Yep, for sure. Anyway, I'll let you start, because I'm dreading this.
Yeah. Let's go for it. Let's get this out of the way.
Oh, shit.
Oh my god.
We start with the goose. It's a 2.
This is nuts.
Although the 7 looks more like a goose. The 2 looks like a swan.
Landar, already having been next by Baraka's dagger, falters again as the dagger makes its way through the chainmail, piercing his left shoulder for 7 points of endurance damage. Landar is shocked, and he deals none in return.
Oh, shit. Damn, you're already down to 27.
Yeah.
Okay, here goes nothing. If we ever needed a goose egg, it's now. Oh! Shit.
Oh no!
Okay.
No!
I rolled a 1. That means that...
Oh my god.
Yeah, Torin loses his nerve for a second, seeing the amount of damage that this foul nobleman...
Wait.
What?
We still have a reroll from our good friend Neil Ravos.
Neil, coming in to save the day.
We still have a reroll from Neil.
Thank you, Neil.
If there was ever a time to use it, it's now.
It's absolutely now, for sure. Watch me roll another 1.
Thank you so much for that potion, Neil.
Oh, no! Shit. Oh, you can't make this shit up.
What a waste of a potion.
I'm sorry, Neil. I failed you. I failed everyone. I failed you, Landar. Yes, that's another 1. As I was saying, Torin panics as he sees Landar being attacked by the wretched Baraka. He falters, and in horror, as those terrible images that momentarily entered Landar's mind now enters Torin's, and drops his scimitar, and the absolute desperation of the situation overwhelms him as he loses his mind and collapses, knocked out on the floor.
Oh wow. This is now down to Landar.
A reminder that as we are playing with doubled endurance point for the enemy, if one of us dies, the other one can carry on fighting. If the other one dies, then it's game over.
No pressure.
None indeed.
Oh! Have
Sweet.
some of that.
Have some of that goose egg. That's a 0, which means it's a 10.
I mean, that's the max damage I can do, and it's only 8 endurance points.
Oh, shit. But you take 0 at least. So
Yeah.
you live to fight another day.
Landar, seeing Torin collapse, bursts into a fit of rage as he plunges the Summersword through the armor of this warrior. The ferocious Baraka recoils in pain as he takes 8 points of endurance.
Come on, slowly but surely. We are withering him down.
Here we go again.
Ooh! Second goose egg.
2
Let's
goose eggs in a
go.
row.
You only need to roll for like 4 more in a row. Oh, we got this.
I think it's more than 4. Landar withdraws the blade from his adversary's chest. With Baraka stunned, he rams it through again, the same wound, and this time twists the hilt, dealing 8 points of endurance damage again.
Baraka is in absolute shock.
He's down to 40 endurance points.
He wasn't expecting the rage of a brother, a grieving brother. Oh, so close.
It was almost a hat trick.
It lingered on the 0 for so long, but then it mocked us as it fell on a 6. Not that bad though.
I still take more damage than I deal. Landar tries the same attack again. This time his blade is momentarily deflected as it only glances Baraka, who in exchange stabs Landar in the thigh, dealing 5 points of endurance damage to Landar, who only manages to deal 4 in exchange. Baraka is down to 36. Landar is down to 22. I'm going to have to roll quite a few goose eggs, or I'm down and out.
You've got this. Oh, come on, stop with the teasing. It hovered on the 9 and then fucked us with a 5.
In a mocking gesture, Baraka does the same thing that Landar did. He withdraws his blade and then plunges it into the same wound,
Tit for tat.
dealing 5 points of damage again to Landar. Landar manages to catch him square on the jaw with a fist
All right,
for 3 points of endurance.
let's go. You got him. It's not bad. He's down to 33.
Yeah, but Landar's down to 17.
Yeah. Come on, a few goose eggs.
Why can't you drink a potion mid-fight?
I don't know. You can in every other game, but not this one.
Oh, this might be over.
Yeah, it's a 2. It's a damn goose.
Taking advantage of Landar's shock, this time He tries to slash at his neck and manages to make good contact, dealing 7 points of damage to Landar, who seems in shock and helpless.
He's gushing.
His eyes turn towards Torin as he starts to fear
You're gonna
that
make me
both
cry.
brothers are gonna die.
You're gonna make me cry. Stop it. You still got 10 endurance points. You can do this.
Here we go.
Oh, not great.
These are shit rolls.
It's a 6.
Baraka comes in for the kill, sensing that Landar is close to death's door. This time he raises the dagger up in a reverse grip, coming down at Landar, trying to finish the battle. Landar tries to deflect the dagger, but he only manages to push it as far as his shoulder, as it makes purchase, dealing him 5 points of endurance damage. Landar, however, does manage to get a headbutt on Baraka, dealing him 4 points of endurance damage. Landar's only got 5 endurance points left.
We need a 0 now.
More than ever. Baraka, recoiling from that headbutt, sidesteps, catches Landar square in the jaw with his fist. Landar falters, his grip on the Summersford failing him as it clatters to the floor. Baraka breaks a wry smile, steps right up in front of Landar and plunges his dagger deep into his heart. Landar again looks towards Torin lying on the floor, faces his enemy, and spits the blood that's now pooling in his mouth all over his face as his eyes now roll back and the darkness begins to consume him. The lone wolves have failed.